Prejudice generalizations. What are we talking about? We're talking about superficial judgments. That's what we're talking about. Superficial judgments, prejudice generalizations. These things exist amongst all aspects of existence here. All the different aspects of Earth humanity. We're talking about from race to sex to religion to region. The color of a person's skin. That which they subscribe to religiously. These are prejudice generalizations. There's a lot of talk going on right now. I get messages all the time from a bunch of different people, and they want me to see or look at certain videos. They want me to check, look at this. Look what these type of people doing. Look what these people doing. Look how these people act. Look what they doing to the children. Now, these may be the actions of some people, or sometimes it's just one individual. But the statement goes, prejudice generalizations. And when we say prejudice, we talk about to prejudge, to label an individual or a group of individuals based off of any particular aspect of their, whatever they prescribe to. It could be guys, it could be girls, it could be Jews or Muslims or people from Israel or what have you. These are all generalizations that hint at prejudice. Superficial. Because the thing is once you do that, right, that's like me saying, well, all black people don't pay their bills, right? That's a generalization, a prejudice generalization. Of course it is. But the same goes for each and every aspect of this species, every aspect of the social constructs amongst Earth humanity. No, of course, fear comes first. Fear comes first, and then the mind identity, or at least the ego mind's attempt to protect the self from those that we see are capable of carrying out certain actions. It's like, okay, these type of people do this, so I need to watch out for people that look like this or are from this area or are of this religious background. These are prejudice generalizations. Labels. And the reason or one of the main reasons we're addressing these things, because the generalizations are being used by the dark to create more division, to create more fear within you. The dark's intent is to create these generalizations or prejudice within you so you can attempt to protect yourself. Promoting fear. They want you to be scared. And the more division we can create, the more prejudice we can cater to within you, the more fearful you'll be of your own reality, of your own brothers and sisters, your own reflections. If I can cater to these ideas, I reinforce the division amongst the species. sensationalist stories that talk about this type of person killed this type of person. So you need to watch out for this type of person. Yeah, no doubt. Of course, if you get bitten by a dog, you're going to be scared. All dogs. I don't like dogs. I got bit when I was 6. I don't like dogs. That's how that works. That's a program. That's a program. That is one of the most blatant programs there is. No, I got bit when I was 3 or 6 by a dog, so I don't like dogs anymore. You could be a 45, 60-year-old person like, oh, no, I don't like dogs. I got bit one time when I was a dog, so now I don't like dogs. They bite people. That's a program. That's a program. And once again, no, and that's not even me exaggerating. They're literally souls that are 60 plus years old that still carry that program. I don't like dogs. I got bit one time, and now I just don't like dogs. No. Of course, this applies across the spectrum. This applies across the spectrum. Now that we've established the nature of these prejudiced generalizations, we can also acknowledge how these same programs present themselves to us as adults in many ways, shapes, and forms. Yeah, of course you need the opposite experience, absolutely. But here's the problem. The experience doesn't present itself until the heart opens. If a soul mentally tells themselves that that's the truth for 60 plus years of their life, once again, one gentle experience where they pet a dog and the dog doesn't bite them doesn't necessarily break the program. Because, once again, we're talking about deep-rooted fear, deep-rooted programming. You'd be surprised if you could take a look. And you can take a look amongst the entirety of the species and see how many individuals are affected by programs that are even more superficial than that one. Even more superficial, real simple things. To, of course, the more deeper aspects of that. Here's one that requires a little more, it requires a little more balance, emotional intensity to process and acknowledge and understand. Rape and child molestation. Now, sit on that for a little bit. Rape and child molestation. Sometimes it just takes these words alone for us to become too uncomfortable to look at the reality and see the deeper foundation of this stuff. These practices of control and dominance amongst individuals They present themselves amongst all the cultures of the world. All of them. We observe them right now. These are practices amongst all of the cultures of the world, amongst earth humanity. People are engaged in such activity. No, it's not necessarily on the cellular level. It's just an aspect of evolving, your evolutionary process as a soul. Everyone has to address some of these, once again, nasty distortions. Everybody got to address this stuff. It doesn't necessarily belong to one group of people over another. All cultures of the world have these individuals dealing with the same programs. Now, of course, absolutely it's a power play. But know that these things exist. And they exist amongst the more darker distortions of the individual soul's journey. Now take a step back for a moment, because the revelations are beginning to intensify on so many levels, and some of these things will have to be addressed. A lot of this dirty laundry gonna have to come out the closet. Now there are those amongst even the awakened community, most of the awakened community, that observe this energy or this activity as distorted and extremely harmful, right? But the problem is, usually when the pain sets in, we usually, or the mind identity has a way of demonizing the perpetrator. And because it's so harmful and hurtful, we will look at the generalization of the perpetrator and use that particular demographic, if you will, and associate that with the activity. We'll associate the individual and everything that has to do with them with the activity. It's like, Jews rape kids. Nasty white men rape kids, right? That's what we would do. That's based on the pain. The mind identity will take the entirety of the situation, or at least the majority of those situations, and begin to generalize. This is harmful. Extremely harmful. Once again, I get messages from people every day. They want me to see videos. Look what these people doing. Look what these people doing. I told you they was bad. I told you they was bad. But the problem is the pain. The pain causes one to result to a level of emotional immaturity that has everything to do, or that enjoys the generalizations, the judgments. These type of people, I told you these type of people were evil. Oh no, the Muslims, these people are evil. I knew they was going to do that. Now, we're making general statements which applies to the general public, because the majority of Earth humanity are stuck within the ego mind identity. Because of that, this is who these statements apply to, because the ego mind identity and its generalizations and its its operations solely within the realms of division operate in such a way. These type of people, the ego mind identity is looking for the bad guy. Well, see, even then, I understand what you're saying. But in truth, all souls here are children of God. All are children. Well, yeah, of course. And we want to find the culprit externally. We want to box everything up and be able to target that activity via the individuals. Now we're going to expand upon that. I want to crack this thing open. It's just that I want to get down to the nitty gritty. It's just that we need to go through the different levels and show how division applies, generalizations apply, and these programs intending to be woven into our fabric of existence will remain self-destructive, because in truth, when we do that, we're causing ourselves pain when we generalize or persecute reflections of self responsible for such distorted activity. Yeah, same thing with animals. Animals and children, we look for the culprit and then we generalize when it comes to the culprit, whereas we're continuing to cater to the energy of division. We're looking for the bad guy. We want to label the bad guy so bad. We want to find the bad guy so bad. And when I say we, I'm talking about the ego mind identity. The ego mind identity wants to find the bad guy so bad that it's willing to remain here in the hell planes. It's willing to remain here on the plains of suffering. Because we want to see someone else that inflicted pain on another experience pain as well. We want to get them. I want to see them tortured. I want to see them hurt because they hurt them. They did this to them. Now, we all have that level. We all have a sense of empathy for children and people who can't defend themselves. And rather than, once again, at that particular space, in that emotional space, it's more sympathy than it is empathy. Sympathy is, okay, pour them. But on the higher spectrum, each individual soul is also responsible for the design of their own life. They wrote out the story of their existence, which includes some of these darker experiences when it comes to being taken advantage of and what have you. The soul is responsible for the experience itself. Now, some may not necessarily be in a broader space of acknowledgement where they can't necessarily see that. It's like, nah, they didn't ask to get raped. They didn't ask to, and it's like, well, beloved, on a deeper level beyond you as a spectator of their life, those souls are the creator of their experience. They wrote that in their story. It could be a karmic experience. It could be something that they wanted to experience for a myriad of reasons. It's just that infinite intelligence is still responsible for all that takes place Just as infinite intelligence was responsible for our story, there are no mistakes or accidents or coincidences. It's all aligned with what we intended for ourselves as a vehicle of our expansion as souls. Yeah, of course not. That's okay. Everybody is where they need to be at right now. It's just that these general concepts are so broad that they apply to the soul. The individual mind identity won't necessarily see the broader perspective to understand that nothing is happening to you. Everything is happening for you. Everything. To include those that we may assume to be innocent. Like, no, them kids came, they didn't do nothing, they just got here. And it's like, hey, beloved, this is way bigger than your individual perspective. These souls could have been coming in once again from lifetimes of doing the exact same thing to other people. But that's not necessarily your business, that's theirs. Only they know that. Everything and everyone, God don't make no mistakes, ever. Ever. Regardless of how heinous, how one-sided you may see the situation. Yeah, of course, acceptance is the hardest thing to do. That's an aspect of your spiritual maturity. You're here to come to a place of self-acceptance. Self-acceptance is aligned with self-realization. Self-acceptance is aligned with self-realization. So at this point, of course, no, beloved, there's still some growing to do. That's why you still healing. Every day is a healing process. And what you're healing is your capacity of acceptance. That's a gauge of your own capacity of spiritual maturity. So yeah, I can't accept that right now, of course, but that's why you still healing. That's why we still here on the hell planes, for the purpose of you coming to a place of being able to accept the paradox of existence.